we find the truth, in the Word of God. That's where we find out what truth is. This is where we find out if our theology lines up with God's truth. Friends, we are in the second week of a message series called Staying True in a World Far from God. And with each series that we do, we typically are memorizing a verse together. It's now on the screen. It's also in your bulletin. If you are new or newer here and you want one of the cards, they are in these baskets by each of the door on your way out. Feel free to grab one. We also have a full box of the previous ones that we've done back by the prayer wall if you want to pick one of those up. But we say it twice each and every Sunday together. So would you please join me, starting and ending with the reference, Daniel 10:12. Do not be afraid, since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard. Daniel 10:12. All right, and so now it's starting at week 2. We start getting rid of some of the letters just to make it a little more challenging for us. So please join me once again. Daniel 10:12. Do not be afraid, since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard. Daniel 10:12. Excellent job. Please take a look at this video. I love that one, by the way. Yeah, I like that one too. Doesn't that make you feel better about yourself when you see stuff like that? Oh my goodness. All of a sudden feel like the best mechanic out there. So let me ask you some questions. When have you felt clueless about how to fix something? Have you ever had a time where something's going on and you just really have no idea how to fix it? I don't know, maybe for you, because I'm not the most handy person, right? But maybe for you, it's something like your shower is leaking, or you, for some reason, hot water does not come out of the shower head. And so you're sitting there just trying to figure out, how in the world do I fix this? How do I solve this problem? Or maybe your car is making some unusual, dare I say, terrible noise. Right? And you just don't know how to fix that. And so what do you do when it comes to that? Side note, my wife had a Taylor Swift birthday party celebration yesterday for her birthday, not Taylor's birthday, which I don't even know when that is. So this is for her. But okay, so maybe it's that, all right? Or maybe you have this recipe that you're trying to figure out and you want to make it, and then you get to the point where it's talking about all the different spices, right? And it's like, I don't know what a dash is, right? I don't know what a pinch is. I thought scallops were potatoes, and then somebody tells me it's a fish. So you kind of get to the point where you just don't know what to do, and you don't know how to solve this problem. But the fact of the matter is we do know how to solve this problem, don't we? Yeah, it's the internet, right? So what we do is these days, just a matter of a few clicks of our thumbs or some keystrokes, and we get somewhere on the internet where some sort of person who has some experience, some expertise, and the resources to solve the problem that we find ourselves in, right? And so we go and we Google that and we see what they're doing and we watch what they're doing, and then we can follow along with the things that they're saying in order to solve that problem, right? And we're able to do that. But now imagine that you have a problem and you can't solve it, right? And you Google it and you're not finding an answer. And all of a sudden you're feeling overwhelmed. And I'm not talking about something like a recipe, right? I'm not talking about needing a mechanic or something like that. But we find ourselves in these situations where we just don't know what to do. And it's a problem that's bigger than ourselves. And here's the thing. I'm guessing most of us, if not every one of us, have been in some sort of situation where we don't know how to solve the problem. We don't know what it'll take to answer the question. And how in the world do we get through something like that? Friends, the passage of scripture that we're looking into today, we're in the book of Daniel. And last week, we meet this guy, and he and four of his friends, they were all taken under the Babylonian Empire. And there's this king who's trained them for 3 years because these people are great, and in regards to their knowledge and stuff, and he trains them to work in the palace. And so Daniel and his three friends, because they had drawn this line in the sand that we talked about last week. They had drawn the line and says, we are not going to disobey God. Even though you have us as your servant, your slave or whatever, we're not going to do the things that wouldn't honor God in this. And it says that God blessed them and gave them the ability 10 times more than anyone else around them to have the wisdom that they would need for the job that they find themselves in. Okay, and so that was last week. And so now we get into this week. And so Daniel and his friends, they're serving somewhere in the king's palace. And in the second year, as we see on the screen, the second year of the reign, Nebuchadnezzar, who is the king, he has this dream, and his mind was troubled, and he could not sleep. And so what the king does is he summons the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers, which these were considered the wise people, the wisest of the wise people, to tell them what he had dreamed. And so when they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, I had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. And then something interesting happens, because the king says, and I'm not going to tell you what the dream was. You need to tell me what the dream was, and you need to interpret it for me. And so you have all these sorcerers and magicians and these wise men who are looking at King Nebuchadnezzar and saying, nobody can do that. You are asking something that it's not possible for people to do. And the king says, no, I want you to be able to tell me what the dream was and interpret it. And they're going, just tell us what the dream is, and then we will interpret it for you. And the king says, you're stalling. And now what I'm going to let you know is if you don't tell me what the dream is and the interpretation, I'm going to kill all of you. Yikes, right? And so now you got these people, they're in this situation that there does not seem to be a solution. How in the world can you tell the king what his dream was and then interpret it? There is just no way. And so they're just saying to the king, please just tell us the dream. We'll interpret it for you and everything will be fine. And the king says, enough. And he sends out this decree to kill all of them. All of the wise men of his palace are now going to be killed. And that's where the story picks up today. God, help us to begin to see what you are calling us to do in order to stay true in a world that's far from God. God, open our eyes to what it means to be looking to you, God, what it means to be praying, what it means to be passionate in our prayers, God. This is something, as you know, God, I struggle with. So please help me to hear these things and not just say them. That I would be one like us who is just learning from you and stepping into this life that you have called us to. God, may the words that I share and the things we all hear be acceptable and pleasing to you, for you are our rock and our blessed Redeemer. Amen. And so the king has decreed that everyone, all of the wise men, are going to get killed. And so that's where we pick up in verse 13. The decree was issued to put the wise men to death. All right. And the men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. Now, here's something that we need to know. Daniel wasn't invited initially before King Nebuchadnezzar. And so this is the first that Daniel is hearing about this. Oh, you've come to kill me. Well, that sucks, right? I mean, what do you do at that point, right? And so it goes to the friends, the issue to put them to death. And it says, when Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, it says Daniel spoke. Now, let me just stop here to say Arioch. I love looking at names, and you guys know that. In the name Arioch, it means fierce like a lion. So we have this guy who's fierce, and he's like a lion. And it says commander of the king's guard who goes out to put people to death. And so what I'm imagining is this is also the chief and the main executioner. So now he is going out and he's gathering up all of the wise men, whether they were there in front of the king or not, because he's going to chop off their heads or kill them. Actually, when it says put to death, what it literally means here is tear limb from limb, right? Which is not a great way to end a day, right? It isn't. But that's what's happening. And so Arioch comes to Daniel, and Daniel speaks to him, it says, with wisdom and with tact. Which is this really interesting thing. Someone comes to you and says, I'm about to kill you. What are you going to do? Well, A, I'd probably run, right? Or B, I'd start freaking out. But Daniel, it says that he remains calm, right? He remains composure. And the word literally means that he speaks with taste, right? And so now he's speaking to Arioch. And what he's saying is he's asking this guy, he says, why did the king issue such a harsh decree? Which is kind of like saying, could you please help me to understand what's going on? And I find this interesting because a lot of times when we hear some bad news, when we hear that we are about to go into some difficult situation, what do we typically do? We kind of freak out, don't we? I don't want to go through this. Why me? Why is this happening to me? Right? And the next thing you know, we're trying to avoid this issue, or we're trying to run around it and hope that it'll just kind of solve the problem itself. Or we get so angry that some of us, we just head to social media and Arioch is the worst executioner I've ever known, or something like that. Who does Nebuchadnezzar think that he is? Signed anonymous, right? And so we do these things. But what Daniel chooses to do is he just remains calm and he enters into the problem. He tries to figure out what in the world is going on. And it says he asked the king's officer, why did the king issue this harsh decree? And Arioch then explains the matter to Daniel. So Arioch, I love it because Daniel wants to find out what's going on. And the way he approached them, the way he went into the problem, for some reason, this fierce lion of a man, who's the chief executioner, stops and just lets him know what's going on. And I just see that as a beautiful picture of what happens when we find ourselves in a problem. He just enters right into the middle of it. And then it says, at this, Daniel went to the king and asked for time. Now, I just want to stop here because many of us know that you cannot just go into the king. If you enter into the king's room unannounced, you usually are put to death. And so we don't know if Daniel just entered in. We don't know if he had permission. We don't know if the fierce lion Arioch helped him to figure out how to enter in to speak with the king. But Daniel goes into the king, and he asks for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. King Nebuchadnezzar, would you just give me a little bit of time? What we find out is to seek God, to come up with the answer for the problem that he's in, figure out how he can navigate through the problem instead of going around the problem or just accepting what's going to happen, the bad thing that's happening in life, just accepting it, right? He says he asks for time. And as I was thinking about this, I started to ask myself, so what did he do when the problem arose? What did Daniel do when he finds himself in the midst of a very, very difficult situation, a situation where it seems like there is no way out? I have no idea how to solve this problem. It is beyond me. What does Daniel do? What I'm seeing in this is that Daniel went directly to the king. Daniel took a step toward the problem. He tried to figure out what was really going on. He's not dealing with it in anger. He's not trying to avoid. He is not launching grenades at anybody. No, he enters into the fray and tries to speak with the person that has issued this decree on his life. I just want to know what's going on, King. Can you help me so that I might be able to figure out if there is anything that can be done for the problem that you have? And so that's the first thing that I see, that when problem arose, Daniel entered straight into the problem. He went directly towards the problem. He went directly to the king. And then what we are about to find out is that Daniel then goes directly to God. And I think this is just this great picture of us, that when we are going through something, that one of the things that we can do, or maybe one of the primary things that we ought to be doing, is entering into the problem and not avoiding the problem. And then once we think we have some sort of idea about it, or even if we don't, I would say, then we turn around and we seek God with what's going on in our lives, what is going on in the situation. And that's exactly what we see Daniel doing, right? The problem has arisen, and Daniel has chosen to seek God out. He finds out what the problem is, and then he turns to God. And the passage says this, says, then Daniel returned to his house, right? So the king must have told him what was going on, gave him some time, because he's still talking and he's still writing, right? And so Daniel returns to his house and he explains the matter to his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So he lets them know what the king said. And then it says, and he urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery. And so what is this saying? One of the things that's really, really interesting in this verse, in this sentence, is that the word mercy, it's plural. It's not a singular word. And when the Hebrews would do this, they're trying to help people understand that this is there's a big and deep intensity to this mercy. Daniel isn't just asking God for help, right? He is crying out for God to do something that only God can do. Only God can help them in the situation, and possibly even through the situation. And so he's begging his friends, he's asking his friends to humble yourself before God and plead for mercy. And not just regularly the way that you would be doing something, right? This isn't the type of prayer that we just commonly say before our meals, right? Bless the Lord, these are thy gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord, amen, right? A lot of us, I grew up on that prayer with my family. And here's the thing, I love my family, right? But it got to the point where I didn't even really hear the words that I was saying. And I certainly wasn't humbling myself before God as I was saying those prayers. What Daniel is saying to his friends, let's stop what's going on in our lives. Let's humble ourselves before God and beg for his mercy, because that's the only way we are going to get through what's going on here. And so he's humble yourself before God and plead for his mercy. One of the stories that I came across this week was about a pastor who had just finished his first year at a church. And the church decided to celebrate the fact that he made it for a year, I don't know, whatever it was, but they decided to celebrate it. And so then after church on that Sunday morning, they all went to a park and they had a huge celebration at the park. And so everyone's eating and music's playing and people are playing games and everyone's having fun. And then all of a sudden the squad car shows up with its lights on. Okay, and so the squad car gets there and they get out and the police are wandering around asking for who's in charge. Everyone starts pointing to the pastor, right? Oh, yeah, he's the one in charge. And so the police go up to the pastor and they say, so we have this issue. And the issue is that somebody has been from a payphone. Parents, you may have to teach your kids what a payphone is, right? But it's kind of this phone that kind of hung out in the middle of nowhere, and you could put money in and you could make calls to it using it, okay? Somebody had called using a payphone 3 times to 911 and didn't say anything. Well, of course, they were able to track which phone this was, and so now they show up there. And the pastor's saying, well, I have no idea what's going on. And so they're just kind of rumbling around and murmuring around, only to find out that the 6-year-old standing right next to the pastor, his son, was the one who was making the phone calls using the payphone. And he was playing with some friends, and they were playing, by the phone. And what did they do? They dialed the only number that they actually knew. And so they would pull off the phone, they would dial 911, they'd snicker at one another, and then they would hang it up, right? And then they did it again, and then they did it again a third time. And then they went to do something else. And now the police are here. And as I'm reading the story, I just start to think, boy, man, this is kind of the way that we operate in relation to our Heavenly Father. The God who's created this world, created this universe, is sometimes we treat him like a 911 operator, right? And we're picking up the phone, but we're not really expecting anyone to be there. And so we just kind of say the things that we want to say, and then we just kind of move on. We pick up the phone again sometime, we just say the things, but we don't really expect to have a relationship with the 911 operator, do we? No, why in the world would we want to do that? And so we kind of view God the same way. I'll say the stuff, probably because I'm supposed to, but I'm not really connecting with him. I'm not really creating a relationship with the one on the other end of the line. Or what we will do is we will find ourselves like Daniel in this horrible, terrible situation. And then what do? Well, then we're all for dialing 911 because we want God to help us through whatever's going on. God, would you please fix this situation? And then here's typically what a lot of us do. And I throw myself in this if I don't remind myself, is that, God, if you could just please fix this situation that I'm going through right now, then I won't bother you again, right? Then we'll be fine. We can both just move forward, you doing your God stuff and me doing my own life stuff. And we do that a lot of times as well. And what Daniel is trying to help us to understand is God is not somebody on the other end that is there, but we don't connect with him. And God also isn't the one that is there for us in times of need and we can just ignore him and move on. Daniel's eyes are open to this, the fact that God is God and he is going to help them through and deal with this mystery as God sees best. He's trusting God. But he says, you urge them to plead for mercy, the most intense pleading that you can do. So God of heaven concerning this mystery. And he even says why? So that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men. But it's going before God and saying, I don't want to die. I don't want to die, God. And I'm wondering if you could do something in this situation. I'm wondering if you could help us out. And here's the beautiful thing about God, whether you've been going to him before or not, whether you've just kind of ignoring him or whether you're realizing right now, wait, so God is saying that I can come to him? Absolutely. I was reminded of Psalm 145 while I was prepping this week. And it says, the Lord is near to all who call on him. Isn't that beautiful to hear? I mean, whether we have ignored God, whether we're realizing right now that I can come to him with my problems, or whether we're somebody who has been living for him and seeking to know him personally, all of us, the Lord is near those who call on him. And then it says, and who call on him in truth. What does this mean? It means that I am, with authenticity, going before God and seeking him out. God, I need your help. And what you call us to do, me to do, or whatever in this situation, I'm going to do the things that you call me to do. But I need your help. And that's the idea of what I see in Psalm 145. And as we are calling out to him, it says that he is near to us. So Daniel's urging them, pleading them to go before God, ask for mercy, because he doesn't want to be executed. None of them want to be executed with the other wise men. And then during the night, it says the mystery was revealed. Now, I want to talk about this word mystery, because the word mystery, what it means is knowledge of future events, right? So this is something that nobody would know. Right? We might be able to have speculations. We might have guesses. We can see what's going on in history and we can begin to assume and make some educated guesses. But there are things in this world we just don't know. And that's what Daniel was crying out to God and asking him, show me something, God, that only you would be able to know. And that night, it says, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. God, who is hearing all our prayers and heard Daniel's prayers, answered in such a way that will help him and his friends to navigate through what was going on. And so what does Daniel do? It says he praises the God of heaven. Oh man, can you see and imagine what's going on here? Daniel's now beginning to realize, or maybe he knew this up to this point, that God is pretty amazing. And again, it started to make me ask the question, why do I? And maybe why do I treat prayer as a last resort? Why is it that when I'm all the way through and in the midst of something and I can't figure it out, why is it at that point that I go before God? And here's the answer I came to about me, and maybe some of us included as well, is that the reason we do it is because we overestimate ourselves. We think that we have the ability to do almost everything in life. right? That I have the ability to solve the problem. I have the ability to figure out how I can get through this. I have the ability to navigate in and around things in such a way that I can move forward in the way that I want. And what I do is I overestimate the abilities that I have. And if I'm overestimating the abilities that I have, that also means that I'm underestimating God. Because I think I can figure it out. I think I have the ability to answer this and solve the problem and move forward. And I don't trust God. God, the creator of the universe, the creator of life, the one who has brought you and me into existence, all of humanity, the one who is all powerful, has the ability to do anything and everything, all knowing, knows past, present, and future, and has an understanding of things going on everywhere all at once. I underestimate him, thinking that I can figure this out instead of the God who knows the future. Why do I do that? Why do we do that? So what Daniel's doing here is he's praying expectantly, and he's asking his friends to do this as well, and seek God's wisdom and guidance, and God answers. And that's such a cool thing. And so now God gives him the answer, and Daniel is super excited. And so what does Daniel do? Does Daniel run to the king? Eventually. He doesn't right away. Why? Because he realizes how amazing God is, and he just stops to admit that. And whether this is in prayer or whether he's sharing it with his friends, I don't know, but he certainly wrote it down so that we can hear this today. And he just starts praising God. And he said, praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. I couldn't have known this stuff. Only God could have. He's the one who changes times and seasons. He's the one who disposes. He gets rid of kings. He raises other ones up. He's the one who gives wisdom to the wise, knowledge to the discerning. It's all about him. He reveals the deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells in him. God is beyond anything that I can imagine. And God, I thank and I praise you, God of my ancestors. Why? Because you've answered my prayer. You've given me wisdom and power. You've made known to me what I asked of you. God can do that. You're in the midst of something and you don't know what's going on. God can be the one who can help you through. God is the one who may help you to better understand what's going on as you're going through that. And that's exactly what God does for Daniel. And he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. I think God has the ability to do that with and for us as well as we seek him out. So you've made known to me what we asked of you, God. You've made known to me the dream of the king. I mean, that's an amen. It's like people should be just saying, thank you, God. You are amazing. You truly are everything. And I imagine Daniel and his three friends going, whoo, we might not die after all, right? Things are looking up. And so what Daniel does is he asks to have an audience with the king, and he ends up going before the king. And the king asks Daniel, who they start talking about, is also called Belteshazzar, which was the name, his Babylonian name that was given. And the king says, are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it? Can you tell me, and can you interpret it? Hear Daniel's answer, because I am hoping that this is the type of answer that I would be giving in situations. Because now they're asking, can you share with me the things that people don't really know? And Daniel answers no. It's so interesting. Daniel says, no wise man, enchanter, magician, diviner, can explain to the king the mystery that you ask about. There is no human on the earth that can tell you the vision that you saw. But we just can't. But, he says, there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. There is a God who knows the future and what it holds. That's what this mysteries is saying. There's a God who reveals the future and what it holds in God's time. And he has shown Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the days to come. So what is Daniel doing here? He's not saying, yeah, figured it out, here's the answer. No, in the midst of sharing the answer, what he does is he gives credit where credit is due. You may not know this, but each and every week, I ask for somebody to place their hand on me on Sunday mornings and pray. And I say, can you give me a 10-second prayer? Because I could use it. And there's somebody from this church who prays for me. Why in the world do I do that? Because I can stand up here and I can talk and I can be relatively entertaining, right? I could clown around. But without God's Spirit working in and through me as I talk, we get nothing. We get nothing of spiritual or eternal value. And I know that there are people from this congregation and people not even from this congregation that are praying for me daily, that God would speak through me for the sake of the people that are hearing the word. I wish I could tell you it was me, but it's not. It's totally God working in and through me. There is a God who reveals mysteries about his word that I don't really have the ability to do on my own. And so we thank God for that. And here's the thing, he is acknowledging that God is the source of his answer. And this reminded me of something that happened in the New Testament, where Jesus, he actually heals 10 lepers. Okay, 10 people who had the skin disease, and all of a sudden they are healed, and these people are running off, and they're super excited, and they're happy. Oh, but one of them turns around, and he comes back, and he just gets on his knees before Jesus and says, thank you so much for what you did. And Jesus asked, weren't 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? So I blessed all these people with something to benefit their life. And they just moved on without me. Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner, this Samaritan? Has no one else come back to thank me for what I've done, to help them into the life anew that they have? And then he says to the Samaritan, he says, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. You trusting in me and you thanking me, not me, but Jesus is saying himself, right? You trusting in God and thanking God for what he did. And that is huge. That's what faith is all about. And so when Daniel goes before the king, that's what he shares. It's not me. I don't have the answer, but I'm so thankful that God has helped me to understand how I can walk into this problem, this situation, in a way that brings him honor and glory. And here's your dream. He starts to share it. Isn't that powerful? I came across this story that I thought was really, really interesting. And it's the story of a guy named Shane and Casey Pruitt. Shane was actually one of the directors of the North American Mission Board. And he and Casey, they were avid people when it comes to adoption. As a matter of fact, of the 6 kids that they had, 4 of them were adopted kids. And the most recent kid that they got, they changed his name, but they changed his name to Titus Praise Pruitt. And if you're looking at this picture, he is the one on the bottom left. And Titus, he was somebody who spent practically his entire life in a Ugandan hospital because of all of the physical problems that were going on in his life, things that just couldn't get better. And they decided to adopt this kid and have this kid in their life and in this world and just seek to help him. And in the midst of helping him, God opened their eyes to a variety of different things. As a matter of fact, Casey one time, as she was talking about Titus, she says that Titus constantly reminds me that this life is but a moment, and a fleeting one at that. I pray for healing for our boy all the time. Do you hear that? Because that's what I do in regards to some things in my life. I mean, a lot of you know that I've been dealing with a constant headache and migraines for 5 years now, and I pray all the time for God's healing in my life. And she's praying for this boy that he can recover somehow from these terrible physical things that are going on in his life. But then she says something that I think is so cool, and I hadn't thought of this before. But the amazing reality is that one day healing will happen for Titus. You know what? We may not see it during this time on earth, but Titus will experience full healing in the presence of Jesus someday. That's what she was saying. Titus ended up living with the family for 10 years. And then July 25th of just last year, he ended up dying. And Shane, multiple times throughout his life, would be writing stuff out on social media just to let people know what's going on in Titus's life and the things that he has learned. And about a month after his death, he wrote this on social media, and he said, here's what I learned from watching our son suffer for 10 years, then go to be with Jesus. God is still good, even when I don't understand. God is still faithful, even when it doesn't make sense. God still has a plan, even when I can't see it. God still reigns, even when things look like chaos. God is still near, even when I can't feel him. God is still good. Friends, that's what I'm hoping we understand today. That this loving and gracious God is calling us from wherever we are, whether we've ignored him all the time leading up to this, whether we're just starting to look and seek and try to figure out who this Jesus is and does he connect in with my life, or we're people that have given our lives to Christ, and we're distracted as we're following God and we're struggling with all that stuff, or people that are just have been fully committed and we're seeking to live for God and know God, and we're in this relationship where it's clear that I know him and he knows me and all that kind of stuff. Wherever we are on that, God is inviting us to come to him and trust him, because he's God and he is the one that can help us through anything and everything in life. Does he solve all the problems for us the way that we want? Absolutely not. God does what he knows is best for each and every one of us, but he invites us to come to him. And that's why this week I was using the phrase pray with passion. Because it's not just words that we say to God, it's humbling ourselves and crying out to him for the things in our lives. Lord Jesus, I want to know you. I want to know you in such a way, God, that I can almost even imagine that I have the privilege of touching your hand. I would really love that, God. Help me to know you more. Lord God, thank you so much for the challenge and the reminder that you make yourself not only available to us, but those of us who call out to you, you are near. Thank you for that reminder. And forgive me, God, for all the times where I just try to figure things out on my own. And help me, God, to trust in you. Help me to be somebody who's willing to humble himself before you. Maybe ask my friends to do the same thing. May we be people that are humbling ourselves before you and seeking to know you in such a personal, intimate way that it goes beyond what I think and hits to where I feel. Some of us who are very, very feeling, that it goes beyond what we feel and we start to understand how real you truly are. Lord, thank you that we can even just cry out to you and say, help me through. And today I pray, God, help me to know you. Friends, we are about to close with a song that I just want to know. I love this song personally, but if you feel like God has been speaking to you and he's calling out to you to just spend some time with him, I invite you to do that during this prayer time. You can stand, or during the music time, you can stand and you can be praying to God. You can stay seated where you are. Of course, the front is always open each and every week for people if you want to come and just humble yourself before God. Just know that you can. But in this time of closing, would we be people that are seeking God with all that we are? Amen.
Thank you for watching this week's message. We hope you found it both encouraging and helpful. If you did, please click the like button and share with your friends. If you want to hear when new messages are posted, please subscribe to the Benton Church. We also invite you to join us on site for worship. We're located in Benton, Kansas, just east of Wichita. Our Sunday services start at 10:30 and our doors are open to everyone. For more information, please check out our website at thebentonchurch.org.
What do you know about God?
He loves us.
He died for our sin.
He helps us.
He's powerful.
And he loves you.